in 1944. As World War II neared its end, Finland signed the Moscow Armistice with the Soviet Union, agreeing to disarm and expel German forces from Lapland. In retreat, the Nazis used a scorched earth strategy, destroying anything useful to the enemy. Amid the desolate Lapland wilderness, a former Finnish commando named Korpi left the war behind, accompanied only by his loyal dog and a strong horse. Korpi continued panning the riverbank, determined not to stop until he discovered even the smallest glint of gold, a hint that he was near. When he finally spotted it, he dug with frantic urgency, oblivious to the roar of planes above as he unknowingly stepped back into the war he thought he had escaped. After days of grueling digging and mounting hopelessness, Korpi at last hit a rich vein of gold. Tears welled in his eyes as he split the ore, revealing its shimmering prize. He hid the treasure safely in his tent and stayed up through the night, keeping watch. At first light, he packed the gold, climbed onto his horse, and rode off his faithful dog trotting beside him. A few hours later, Korpi encountered a Nazi squad led by General Bruno, accompanied by a tank and a truck filled with kidnapped women victims of horrific abuse, particularly at the hands of the soldier Wolf. Korpi locked eyes with Bruno in a cold, piercing stare, but said nothing, riding past as if unaffected. Wolf wanted to open fire, but Bruno held him back, convinced that Korpi was riding to his own death. Korpi continued down the desolate road, strewn with the bodies of Nazi victims, a stark reminder of their brutality. Before long, he came upon a truck carrying 4 soldiers who ordered him to dismount, searched his belongings, and quickly discovered the gold. Korpi had planned in advance and sent his dog running. A soldier fired, but the dog narrowly evaded the shot. When another mocked Korpi as an old man and raised his weapon to fire, Korpi struck first, plunging his dagger into the man's skull. The remaining soldiers rushed at him, but in a brutal hand-to-hand battle, Korpi wielded his knife with lethal precision, using their own bodies as shields as he brought them down one by one. As gunfire broke out, Korpi snatched his helmet and smashed it into a soldier's face, knocking him out cold. When the final attacker lunged from behind, Korpi twisted his arm and fired his own weapon into him. Hearing the gunshots, Bruno and his men hurried back only to discover the lifeless bodies of their comrades and no trace of Korpi. Bruno discovered a gold bar in a fallen soldier's pocket and immediately realized Korpi was transporting a fortune. Driven by greed, he ordered his men to pursue. Minutes later, the Germans spotted Korpi on the road, and the tank began firing. Korpi galloped ahead, miraculously evading every shot only to ride unknowingly into a minefield. Seeing this, Bruno called off the attack, satisfied to let the mines do the rest as he watched from afar. The horse collapsed, throwing Korpi violently to the ground. Miraculously, he survived the fall. As his loyal companion took its final breath, Korpi bowed his head in a silent farewell, then steeled himself for the fight ahead. Noticing the scattered gold, he pushed through the pain and scrambled to retrieve it. Watching from a distance, Bruno ordered his men to hold fire, unwilling to risk lives over treasure clutched by a dying man. Instead, he waited, biding his time for the perfect moment to strike. Korpi seized the gold and a rock, then hurled the rock at a nearby mine just before Bruno could order fire, setting off a massive explosion. The thick smoke cloud that followed gave cover as the Germans opened fire. Korpi swiftly took shelter behind nearby debris. After several minutes of blind firing, Bruno dispatched a young soldier to scout ahead, but he triggered a mine and was killed instantly. 2 more soldiers were then sent to check the roadside, only to meet the same fate. When the dust and smoke finally settled, the Germans were stunned to discover that Korpi had vanished without a trace. Frustrated, Bruno pushed his men to speed up the chase, using 2 kidnapped women as human shields at the front. When he spotted Korpi's dog tag, he pressed forward and radioed headquarters. But HQ immediately ordered him to halt, warning they were lucky to still be alive. Korpi wasn't just any drifter, he was a living legend and Finland's most feared commando. After the Russians took his home and family during the Winter War, he became a relentless hunter, wiping out patrols without leaving a trace. Alone in the wilderness, Korpi, known as the Immortal Kashi, was said to have killed over 300 enemy soldiers. Though such a revelation might have rattled others, Bruno remained steadfast, fueled by pride and the lure of the gold. Korpi carried his final hope as the Nazis neared collapse. Meanwhile, Korpi pushed forward until he came across a burned-out truck with a corpse inside. Seizing the moment, he hid behind the wreckage and began treating his wounds. He packed dirt into his wound to stanch the bleeding. Moments later, his faithful dog emerged, eyes fixed on him. After resting for a few hours, Korpi was jolted awake by footsteps, and barking Nazis had arrived with corpse-tracking hounds. Without a sound, he slid beneath the charred remains of a truck, holding his breath as the dogs crept closer, drawn by his scent. Holding his breath, Korpi waited for the last truck to pass, then slipped under it. He punctured the fuel tank, letting gasoline spill to mask his scent. The soldiers hesitated, buying him a moment to escape until a dog caught his trail and growled, giving him away. A bullet grazed Korpi's leg, but he kept running. Bruno released the hounds. Korpi struck a match, setting his gasoline-soaked clothes ablaze. The flames sent the dogs scrambling, but in the chaos, the Nazis closed in, forcing Korpi to dive into a nearby lake. Bruno ordered his men to hold fire until Korpi surfaced. Holding his breath, Korpi heightened their tension. The moment his head broke the surface, they fired, certain he was dead. 3 soldiers took a boat to recover the gold, but as one jumped in, Korpi struck from behind, killing him with a swift knife blow. Bruno ordered the second soldier in, but the water quickly turned red again. Panicked, the third tried to flee only for Wolf to shoot him for desertion. Amid the chaos, Korpi used the dead soldier's body as cover. On shore, his loyal dog waited, eager but kept at bay by the water. After hours of walking, Korpi reached a town consumed by flames. Weary and in pain, he took refuge in a collapsing gas station, his injured leg throbbing. Just as sleep began to take him, a familiar bark stirred him awake. His loyal dog was waiting outside. Korpi saw a lit stick of dynamite strapped to his dog's collar. He ripped it off and hurled it away just in time. Its explosion knocked him to the ground. Before he could get up, Bruno, Wolf, and Schütze surrounded him and tied him to a broken road sign. Despite his capture, Korpi remained calm, earning their silent respect as they removed their hats in tribute to a worthy foe. Before departing with the gold, Bruno mockingly shoved a bar into Korpi's coat pocket. Once the Nazis were gone, Korpi refused to give in. Gritting his teeth, he tore his bound wrists on rusty nails and drove his wounded foot onto another, using the pain to stay conscious. All through the freezing night, he endured in silence, his loyal dog never leaving his side. The next morning, a plane landed near the gas station, its rumble shaking the ground and knocking Korpi off his feet. 2 pilots stepped out, searching for fuel. One spotted Korpi as his dog barked in warning. The second pilot shouted to open fire, but Korpi struck first, slamming his fist into the first pilot's leg, sending him tumbling headfirst to his death. The dog's barking lured the first pilot aside, giving Korpi the chance to ambush him with a brick. With hope dwindling, he quietly buried Bruno's gold bar. But then the second pilot stirred, still alive. Realizing the man and plane could be his lifeline, Korpi quickly devised a plan to recover the gold and turn the tide. The pilot froze in horror as Wolf's rope tightened around his comrade's neck, a trap set by Korpi. Realizing the danger, Bruno ordered an immediate retreat. Nearby, as soldiers herded women onto a truck, a man overheard one of them speak with eerie calm, her words hinting at the legend of Korpi and the futility of trying to stop him. The woman explained that Korpi wasn't immortal, He simply embodied Sisu, the unyielding Finnish spirit of courage and perseverance. Certain the Nazis' defeat was near, Eno watched as one soldier collapsed and another was crushed beneath a tank. Seizing the moment, he grabbed the fallen soldier's weapon, ready to join the fight. Korpi leapt onto the truck, overpowered the driver, and discovered prisoners inside. He handed Eno a weapon and signaled her to climb onto the roof. With a precise strike, he killed the driver through the ceiling. As the body was pulled aside, Eno took the wheel and drove straight toward the tank, giving Korpi the chance to leap aboard. Using the driver's corpse as a decoy, they caught the soldiers off guard, maintaining the element of surprise. They opened fire, eliminating the enemy. Korpi struck its hatch with a pickaxe. The sudden break threw him off, and Wolf emerged, firing several shots at him. Korpi climbed onto the tank and battled Wolf in a brutal fight that left both men on the ground. With only Bruno and Schütze left inside, Korpi pressed forward, landing heavy blows. Just as he moved to finish Wolf, two soldiers arrived on a motorcycle. Recognizing Korpi, they panicked and fled without a fight. Korpi grabbed the motorcycle and pursued the tank. Wolf thought he was in the clear until the vengeful women appeared. At the rendezvous point, a plane awaited, but with room for only one. Without hesitation, Bruno executed Schütze and boarded with the pilot, leaving the others behind. Korpi closed in, engine roaring. Korpi fired, shattering the plane's window as it lifted off, then ditched the motorcycle. Believing they'd escaped, Bruno didn't see Korpi's pickaxe hooked to the fuselage. Clinging to the landing gear, Korpi began tearing through the bomb bay floor, preparing his surprise attack. Bruno grew suspicious at a strange noise and ignored the pilot's excuse to check the hatch just as Korpi lunged. Though badly wounded, Korpi's skill kept Bruno on the defensive. But as his strength faded, Korpi held firm. As Bruno swung the cable, Korpi grabbed it, jammed it into the bomb, and let go. The explosion engulfed them. Thrown to the floor, exhausted but alive, Korpi watched the plane spiral, the pilot already dead from a gunshot. Korpi grabbed the gold and strapped in moments before the plane exploded into the swamp. Nearby, a Finnish unit braced for combat as a German tank rolled in only to find Anno and the women, with Wolf tied to the cannon. Against all odds, Korpi had survived. Korpi emerged from the swamp clutching his pickaxe and the gold. Days later, he rode into Helsinki on a stolen Nazi bike, his loyal dog at his side. Entering a bank, he calmly dropped the gold on the counter, ready to exchange it for lighter, large-denomination bills.